Hey, welcome back, guys. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to actually interact with these objects as well as create different versions of them. The first thing we need to do is open up our scanner component and add a new function to interact with focused objects. Okay. And all we're doing here is looping through all of the objects that are being focused or looked at and call the interact function on them. We need a way to actually call this function. So to do that, we will create a new gameplay ability. So create new blueprint class of type gameplay ability. Let's call this GA underscore interact. And in here, all we got to do is get avatar from actor info, get component by class, then the class being the scanner component, of course. Then from there, we just call interact with focused objects, the function we just made. And after we've done that, we can just end the ability. All right. To activate this ability, we need to give it to our player. So as seen in a previous tutorial, we need to add a new game feature action. This one right here, add abilities. Then in the ability list, we have to first specify the player class, and the granted ability is obviously going to be the interact one we just made. But we also need to create a new input action. So let's create a new folder, call it input, and go ahead and create a new input action. We'll call this interact. This one will be triggered by pressed trigger because you're going to press a certain key. And we also need an input mapping context. And this is basically what we're going to use to actually assign a specific key for this action. So I'm going to bind it to my E key. There's it right there. And I'm not sure if I have to do this twice, but I'll do it anyway. Go ahead and save that. And if we go back to our plugin data asset, we can give it the input action. And finally, we need to add the input mapping to our player. We just created this one. Give it a priority of 1. Let's test it out. So if I go up to my interactable object and hit E, you can see that I'm able to interact with it. Now let's say you want to add more objects into your game, because obviously in your games you'll have doors, keys, switches, buttons, whatever. So first things first, you need to create a blueprint for the object that you're going to put in your world. So this would mainly just be like the mesh component. So let's go ahead and make one for an interactable sphere. And it's just going to have the sphere primitive. Okay, but this could be a door mesh, a button, whatever. And the behavior will get programmed in our plugin itself. So if we go into our components thing, let's make a child of the interactable object behavior component. And instead of this, we'll just call it interactable sphere. Okay, and in it, we will do something unique. So we'll print out sphere instead of the other thing. Now, if we open up the plugin data asset, duplicate the entry that adds the default behavior to the base object, we'll want to instead add the sphere behavior to the sphere object that we made. Hit save, and let's drag the sphere into our game so we can test it out. As you can see, I can now interact with the sphere and it has its own behavior, and I can also interact with the cube. Now let's see what happens when we try adding another interactable object where we don't specify a specific behavior. So let's make a child class of the interactable object base, and we'll call this interactable cone. And it's just going to have the cone primitive. We'll drag it into the scene and hit play. So if we go up to the cone, you'll see that it highlights and can be interacted with just like the cube. Because the cone extended this interactable object base class, it was able to receive the default behavior component. However, the sphere also extended this base class, but we give it a specific component. In this case, it receives this component and does not receive this one, which is exactly what we want because we wouldn't want the sphere to have its own behavior on top of the generic one as well. Okay, well that wraps up this 2-episode mini-series on creating a modular interactable object system. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. My next mini-series on modular gameplay features is going to show you how to create an equipment system that allows you to equip different weapons and armor, each with their own unique ability sets. If that sounds interesting to you, make sure to subscribe and keep your alerts on. And with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.